welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And welcome to today's episode.
Hello everybody, thanks for joining us.
So Joe, where in the world are we?
We are in the USA.
And your title?
2 murders, 1 abduction.
Okay. Shall we dive in?
Yes, let's. So this crime happened in 2018, so it's a really recent one. Well, I'm saying really recent, that's actually 5 years ago.
I know. It seems like it's so recent.
I know.
Actually, yeah, time's getting on.
I know. So the Closs family were Mum Denise, who was 46, Dad James, who was 56, and their daughter Jayme, who was 13. So they lived in Barron, Wisconsin. Denise and James both worked at the Jenny O turkey store. Denise and James were described as nice, ordinary people who kept themselves to themselves, and they were really close to their daughter Jayme. She was in 8th grade and she was described as shy, quiet and sweet, and she was just like any other teenager and spent a lot of time on her phone. So on the 15th of October 2018, at 12:53 a.m, a call was made to 911. The operator could hear a disturbance and some yelling, but she couldn't understand what was being said, apart from what sounded like, "Will you please just come," before the call was disconnected. So the operator called the number back and she got Denise's voicemail.
Right.
So officers were dispatched straight away and they arrived just 4 minutes after the call. But the house was just quiet.
Yeah. That's never a good thing.
They saw the front door to the house had been forced open and just inside was Jayme Closs's body. He had been shot in the face.
Right.
So they went further into the house and found his wife Denise's body in the bathroom. She had been shot in the head. So they searched the rest of the house and there was no one else there, but where was Jayme? So an Amber Alert immediately went out, but for 3 months there was no sign of Jayme.
Right.
So multiple organisations, including the FBI and the National Missing Persons Programme, were put on the case and 2,000 volunteers were out searching for Jayme. Thousands of tips came in which the police chased, but they came to nothing. The FBI offered a $25,000 reward for any information leading to Jayme's whereabouts, and her parents' employer offered another $25,000.
Oh, wow. That was good of them, wasn't it?
I know, so that was like 50,000 altogether.
Yeah.
They used thermal imaging drones. 4 canine units were called in to patrol the area surrounding the family's home. Sorry. And even though the dogs were introduced to Jayme's scent, nothing was found. So police set up cameras at the property just in case the killer went back to the scene, because, you know, it does happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Jayme's photo was on flyers, like all over the news, over social media. There was even a Christmas tree on display in the lobby of the Barron County Justice Centre called the Jayme Closs Tree of Hope, to remind members of the public that they still needed help to find her. Some people did actually think that maybe Jayme was the killer.
Oh, right, okay.
And that she maybe had an accomplice to help her flee. But, of course, if she did have help, why wouldn't she have just let them in instead of, like, shooting the front door and breaking down the bathroom door, you know?
I mean, even if you wanted to stage something like that, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I don't think you'd be that clever to think of that, would you?
The police never thought that she was involved. You know, it's just people having opinions, people trying to...
You always do, though, don't you?
Yeah.
You always say that, well, what if, sort could have been, or whatever,
But, I mean, like as I said, the police never thought that she was involved, but they did look into it. But she didn't have a boyfriend, she had no secret relationships, like, online or anything like that. And the person she was closest to was her mum. So that theory was ruled out. Sorry, Piper is whining. We're trying to keep her quiet.
She's been a bit of a pest today.
Yeah, she's been a pest. So about 2 weeks after the murders, the cameras that the police had installed at the Closs residence caught someone entering the house. So police rushed over there and arrested a guy called Kyle Jenkianis, I think it is. Right. Officers searched him and they found items that belonged to the Closs family in his pockets, including 2 pairs of Jayme's underwear. So the police were convinced that they were a step closer to finding her. But Kyle's reason for being at the Closs house wasn't what they expected.
Oh, right.
You know, they thought he was the killer going back.
Yeah.
In custody, he said, quote, "Any child comes up missing, it pisses me off and it makes me want to fucking hunt him, the person, to find him," end quote. He went on to say that he can feel things and see things sometimes that other people can't. So I think he was trying to say that he would get a feeling about what happened there if he went to the house and maybe get a feeling.
So he was trying to help.
That was one thing that he said.
Uh-huh.
But then he said that the crime wasn't his style. He said he doesn't use guns. He would, quote, rather chop people's fucking heads off, end quote.
Oh, right, okay. Well, that's not a bit disturbing, is it?
But then he went on to say that he doesn't do that, though. He doesn't chop people's heads off because he holds himself back from doing that.
So he does actually want to hurt people, then?
Yeah,
okay.
This man is very confusing.
Yeah, okay.
So he was interviewed for about 3 hours, but he didn't really give any straight answers. And when asked why he was so interested in the Closs case, he just went off on a tangent about how paedophiles should all die. And basically, at this point, he was trying to come across as a vigilante and wanted to be a hero by finding Jayme.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'm a bit confused about whether he's good, bad, or what. I'm not sure.
I don't know. So, when asked why he had some of Jayme's underwear, he said that the police caught him when he was in the middle. He didn't say what he was in the middle of.
Oh, right.
So he just kind of ended up with them.
Mm-hmm.
So to me that sounds like he was looking through stuff and had them in his hand and he just happened. That's what he's saying.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Then he said something along the lines of, well, if you don't ever find Jayme, someone else might make use of them.
Okay,
so
that's weird.
In one sentence he said he didn't mean to take them.
Mm-hmm. Then
he changed to maybe giving them to someone else. He then went on to talk about opening a homeless shelter, and then later told officers that he intended. So then he was taught that's the people who would benefit from them was because he was going to open a homeless shelter.
What, and take them somebody's underwear?
Yeah. I think there was other stuff as well, so there might have been other items of clothing.
Right.
But then he told officers that he intended to keep Jayme's underwear for himself as he was transgender and was planning to get gender affirming surgery.
Right.
So
this man's very, very, very strange.
Yeah. So and then he said after the operation he was gonna, quote, gonna go out there and protect all the goddamn fucking transgenders that are fucking dying too, that are fucking getting killed, end quote.
Right. He's funny.
So, to be honest, from what I saw of his police interview, and I think you'll agree with me, from what I've told you, I think the guy has some mental issues.
Yeah, it does sound like
he was just... He was rambling and, like, jumping from one thing to the other, and it just didn't make sense. You know, like, 1 minute, I didn't mean to take her items, whatever they were. He didn't mean to take them. But then he was saying, but then if we can't find Jayme, somebody else can have them because I'm going to open up a homeless centre. But actually, I'm transgender, so I'm going to keep them for myself. You know, there's just...
Too many ramblings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's all we know about him. So I don't know...
Oh, right, okay.
I don't exactly know what that was all about. No idea.
Very random.
So, eventually... the police let him go as there was no reason to connect him to kidnapping Jayme. There was just nothing. So as I said, I don't even think nobody knows what he was doing. Maybe he just wanted to steal stuff. Maybe he was just that low that he would go to somebody's house where there'd been murders and a child missing, and just wanted to steal stuff
or something like that. I just thought,
well, it was all over the news.
Oh yeah, so he just thought, I'll just go and involve myself.
Yeah,
in it.
Strange.
Very strange.
So eventually, after 88 days of being held captive, Jayme managed to escape. So I'm going to tell you what happened.
So she was alive.
Yeah, so the guy, the perpetrator, Jake Patterson, was 21 years old. He worked at a cheese factory, and one day, he worked at a cheese factory. I think this was his second day as a temp at the cheese factory.
Oh, okay, so he didn't really work there for very long.
No, one day as he was driving to work, he spotted Jayme getting on the school bus. He didn't know her. He'd never seen her before.
Right.
But as he said to investigators later, he just knew that she was the girl he was going to take.
Oh.
Because he'd obviously been thinking about kidnapping a girl for a while, and he saw her and thought, right, that's it. That's the one.
She's my victim.
Yeah. So he started planning how he was going to do it pretty much straight away while he was still in the car. He was like, started thinking about it.
Right.
So at some point he must have obviously followed her from the bus to her house to find out where she lived. He actually drove to Jayme's house twice, intending on kidnapping her, but the first time there were cars in the driveway And the second time, the lights were on in the house and he could see people inside. So those times he just went back home again.
Yeah.
But the third time was the 15th of October, and the house was in darkness as Jayme and her parents had gone to bed. So Jake had come prepared. He had shaved all his hair off his head,
Right.
shaved his face so that he wouldn't leave any hairs at the scene.
Right.
He had taken his dad's 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun, which is a really common gun, so he thought it would be harder to track, because it was so common.
Yeah.
He took 6 shotgun shells and wiped them all before putting them in the gun.
Right.
He went to Walmart and bought a black balaclava, disconnected the interior light in his car, so that she wouldn't be able to see his face. Like,
All right. Because when you open the car door up, the
light goes on. But I don't know why, because he was putting it in the boot anyway, so I'm not really quite sure what. Anyway, and he cut a cord that could there's a cord to unlock the boot from the inside, but he cut that so she wouldn't be able to
get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He then went to a different, like another town, and he stole registration plates from another car.
Right.
And put them on his.
They put a lot of thought through this, didn't
Well,
they?
yeah. It's definitely planned. So, he took the registration plates, put them on his. So he was prepared and determined that he wasn't going to get caught. So Jake pulled into the driveway with his headlights off, but the family dog Molly must have heard the car because she started barking and Jayme woke up and she ran to wake her parents. So Jake started banging on the door. How scary was that?
Oh my god, that would be awful.
And Jayme and her mum Denise ran to the bathroom and like locked themselves in the bathroom. They got into the bath and like pulled the shower curtain.
Right.
And they like sort of barricaded the door and that. So James, Jayme's dad, he went to the front door and he looked like they've got like a small window pane in the door. So he looked through that and he actually thought that Jake was a police officer, maybe because he had a gun and he was shouting, "Get down on the ground."
Right.
So he must have thought this was a police officer.
Yeah.
So James demanded that Jake show him his badge, but Jake just aimed the gun and shot James through the window and he died instantly.
That's awful.
So Jayme and Denise heard the shot and that's when Denise called 911.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Jake was trying to break down the door, but he couldn't get in, so he shot the doorknob and got the door open. And he just stepped over James's body, and with a torch in hand, he started to look round the house. So all the rooms were empty except for the bathroom, obviously. And that, because the door was locked, he was like, well, that's obviously where they are.
Where they are, yeah.
So he started kicking at the door to try and get in. Can you imagine? But you just know what I imagine.
No,
but
I don't know.
you're in the bath with the shower curtain and you've heard a gunshot, 2 gunshots already.
Yeah.
And then somebody's just trying to kick this door down.
That would give me the...
You'd be absolutely... to me, that sounds like a scary movie.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie type thing, yeah.
So, as I said, Jayme and Denise, they put a barricade, so they put like a drawer or something in front of the door. So he was out for a while, like, trying to kick the door. And then he stopped kicking after a while and then started, like, using his shoulder. So it took between 10 and 15 shoves from his upper half before the door broke. So that's... quite a lot. That was quite a lot of effort.
Yeah, definitely.
So he stepped into the bathroom and he ripped down the shower curtain and he saw Denise clinging to Jayme and what he described as a bear hug. She was just had her daughter. No, he gave Denise a roll of duct tape and told her to put it over Jamie's mouth. So she was struggling to do it because she was probably shaking that much. She probably didn't want to do it. Obviously, this is her daughter.
Yeah.
But he lost patience and he put the gun on the sink, did it himself. And then he duct taped Jamie's wrists and ankles and lifted her out of the bath. He then aimed the gun at Denise, turned his head away, pulled the trigger and shot her in the head. What a coward. Not even being able to look at the person that you're shooting. He actually turned his head away, but yet let her daughter see.
That's awful.
Her 13-year-old daughter saw her being shot.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking.
So he grabbed Jayme, slipped on the blood that was on the floor from Denise, and he dragged Jayme out of the house and into the boot of his car. So, and I'm assuming that's why the dog didn't get the scent, because I'm assuming that he must have carried her and then put her in the car, so the dogs wouldn't have picked up. No. You'd think they'd have scent from her obviously coming and going, but I don't know. So he took off his mask and he started driving away, but not even a minute later he had to slow down because of the police responding to Denise's 911 call. Yeah. So he slowed down to let them past.
Right, okay.
Jayme could hear the sirens and she probably had hope for all of
Yeah.
a couple of seconds, but at this point, the police, they didn't have any idea what the 911 call was about because Denise hadn't been able to speak.
Exactly. So they didn't know that there was somebody driving away.
So they wouldn't have known to be stopping anybody.
No.
But Jake did say later that he was prepared for a fight. If they did stop him, he would have just shot at them.
Oh.
So Jake drove for 70 miles to a place called Gordon. It's a tiny place which, according to Wikipedia, has a population of 645 at the 2000 consensus. So that's how small it is. And his family had a house there, and there was a sign above the front door saying Patterson Retreat.
Right.
So his dad owned it, but he only stayed there at the weekends as he mostly lived with his girlfriend. So Jake was pretty much there by himself. His dad wasn't there much at all. So when they arrived at Patterson Retreat, Jake dragged Jayme out of the car and into the house. He made her get changed into a pair of his sister's pyjamas, and he went down to the basement where he burned her clothes, the duct tape, his gloves and balaclava. He didn't burn any of his other clothes, like his jeans, for instance, were found in his washing basket when he later got caught. You'd have thought after 88 days he would have washed them.
Yeah.
Never mind. Mm-hmm. His boots were in his bedroom. But when asked why he didn't get rid of those items, he said that if the police made it to his house, then they would find Jayme, so there wasn't any point in getting rid of the rest of the evidence. So the things that he did get rid of were things that would raise questions if his dad found them.
Right, okay.
So obviously if his boots and his jeans are lying about, they're not going to raise any questions.
No.
But if his dad was to find duct tape and Jamie's clothes, then obviously that's going to raise questions.
Yeah.
So that's why. So he then forced Jayme under his twin-size bed, and that's where she was kept most of the time for those 88 days. Except for at night, he would make her sleep in the bed, in the same bed as him at night time.
Mm-hmm.
But during the day she was under the bed.
Right.
His dad did come home at the weekends, and as I mentioned before, you know, he spent the rest of the time with his girlfriend. But when his dad was home, he would just barricade her under the bed with like bags and washing baskets and stuff like all in front of the bed, so like nobody would be able to see underneath it. And he would turn up the radio in his room to muffle any sounds that she might make.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes Jayme would be under the bed for up to 12 hours without being able to go to the toilet or to get something to eat or drink or just to move around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was caught, Jake told the police that most of the time Jayme wasn't restrained and the doors weren't locked. And when he wanted to go out, he would just tell her to get under the bed and be quiet. So basically, he basically relied on Jayme's fear of him to keep her in line.
Mm-hmm.
When they first got there, he had told Jayme that he would kill her if she misbehaved, and of course she believed him since he killed her parents, and she saw him killing her mum. So I'm not surprised that she was just she would have believed it. That
the thing is, I think it's amazing what fear can do to stop you from doing stuff, because everybody would, well, not everybody, but people would think, oh, well, why didn't she just run away when he did go out or whatever? And I mean, that's easier said than done if you've got that fear that just stops you.
So you know, the poor child was terrified, and he would shout and like punch walls. And one time he hit her really hard on her back with some kind of stick.
Mm-hmm.
So, although she wasn't restrained, he was obviously, he still had control over her.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen, as we said, you've seen this guy killing your parents, and then he's punching walls and shouting and stuff like that. I mean, you'd be thinking to yourself, well, any slight move that I make, he could kill me.
Exactly, that's it. You just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I said you've just seen him kill your parents, so you know he's capable of it.
Oh, definitely. So on the 10th, I don't know where the first came from. On the 10th of January 2019, Jake told Jayme that he was going out for a few hours, and Jayme decided she wasn't putting up with this anymore. She was like, do you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So she summoned up the courage, I mean, it must have took a lot for her to do that.
But well done for
her
doing it.
She pushed the bags and whatever else was barricading her into the bed, and she got out from under that bed. Mm-hmm. It was a cold day and there was thick snow on the ground, and Jean Nutter was walking her dog. She was just a couple of doors away from her house when she noticed a girl walking down in the middle of the road. Yeah. So she knew straight away something was wrong because of the way that the girl was dressed. Mm-hmm. She only had like a hoodie and a vest top on underneath, a pair of leggings and a pair of trainers which were far too big for her, and they were on the wrong feet.
Right.
The girl's hair was matted and she looked exhausted. I mean, this is, as I said, it was deep snow, like she should have been
wrapped
up, yeah. So she walked up to her and the girl like fell into her arms and said, "I'm Jayme." And Jane said, "I know." She had seen Jayme's face on so many posters and on the internet and news, like, so she knew straight away that, yeah, this was her. And Jayme also said, "He killed my parents, I want to go home, help me."
Yeah.
So Jane, she's a retired trauma counsellor, so she was great in keeping Jayme calm and asked her where she'd came from. So Jayme showed her the house that she'd been kept in, and it was only a couple of doors away from Jane's.
Right.
So Jane didn't want to take Jayme into her house because the Pattersons' land actually touched the back of her land. That's how close they were.
Right.
So she was like, it was just a bit too close for comfort. She thought, you know, she didn't tell Jayme that she lived there though. Like Jayme had said to her, "Do you live nearby?" And she'd said no. She was just taking her dog for a walk because she didn't want Jayme to know how scared she actually was and that her house might not be safe. So she decided to take Jayme to a neighbour's house, which actually wasn't that easy, as not many people live in that area all year round. So it must be more of like a holiday home place. I guess like cabins that they have.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's why it was like the Pattersons retreat, because it's like
so it's just not
like
somewhere
a
that they live all year
holiday
round. They just maybe go for a few months a year or
but eventually she did find a family who did live there all year round. I mean, some of them do. And they were at home. They were Peter and Kirsten Kazinkis and their children. So Jane, they, you know, obviously went to the door, said to Kristen, "This is Jayme, call 911 right now." So Kristen called and she said she had a young lady at her house who said her name was Jayme Closs. So Peter, he loaded his gun and he went to the front door just in case Jake came looking for Jayme. The operator wanted to talk to Jane so that she could tell them as much as she could about Jake Patterson while officers were on their way. 20 minutes into the 911 call, Jane was getting more and more nervous and asked if the officers were close, and then finally 29 minutes into the call the police arrived. So
that took a while, eh?
Yeah, but I'm not sure, because it's quite a remote place
with the weather,
and plus with the weather maybe it was going to take a while. I don't know, but luckily the police got there without any sign of Jake. So even though Jayme wasn't physically harmed, she was taken to hospital to be checked over, and as they drove out of the neighbourhood they passed a car travelling in the opposite direction, and Jayme thought it could have been Jake's car, so the officer driving her like radioed it in and the car was stopped. So Jake had arrived home and saw that Jayme was gone, so he jumped into his car and started driving around looking for her. And when he was pulled over he just put his hands up and said, "I did it."
Obviously wasn't prepared to put up a fight.
No.
Thank God.
But funny enough, when he was actually taking her, he was like, "Oh, I was going to shoot them," but this time it was just like,
maybe
I did
he had more adrenaline at that point, in that moment when he had taken her and stuff, and whereas obviously at that point he probably thought, well, what's the point? Like
she's been rescued.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no point in me trying to, put up a fight or get away with this. I've done it. I mean, thank God she bumped into that lady though, because if she had been wandering around,
well, you never know.
You might have ended up finding her. So thank God. Jean got her.
Jean or Jeannie? But I'll just call her Jean, because I'm not sure whether it was Jean or Jeannie.
Right.
Because I watched like different kind of news reports.
Yeah.
And some people called her Jean and some people called her Jeannie, so...
Yeah, maybe she was just called both, depending on who she was.
Well, exactly. I don't know, but I'm calling her Jean because...
Yeah.
That's just what I'm calling her. So I hope she's alright with that. So he was arrested and taken into custody. And when asked what he would do with Jayme all day, he said they would just hang out and watch TV and play games. He offered her marijuana and alcohol, but she didn't want any. If the news came on the TV, he would switch it off because he thought that if she knew anything about the investigation, it would give her hope of being rescued and make her more determined to escape. So Jake was asked what his long-term plans were.
I know, because that's what I was just wondering here. Like, what was he doing? Like, why did he kill the parents in the first place, and why did he take her, and what was his intentions with her long term?
Well, his long terms were what he thought. He thought that the more time that passed, maybe him and Jayme could have a life together, and that after a year or so they could get an apartment together.
Right.
So he actually thought that she would maybe eventually forgive him for killing her parents and taking her against her will.
And set up a life together. Aye, right. Well, I don't think that was ever going to happen.
No, I mean, even if he hadn't killed her parents, he kidnapped her.
Well, exactly. So why would she willingly want to have a life with you?
So when he was asked why he kidnapped Jayme, his answer was, quote, "Obviously my fucking thoughts or whatever before I did this were about sexual shit, right? But, you know, of course it's fucking terrible what I did, so I couldn't, and I didn't want to do anything like that with her," end quote. So his motivation was sexual, but for whatever reason, he couldn't do it.
He felt guilty that he'd killed her parents and then couldn't do it.
Maybe he just liked her.
I mean, thank God. I mean, because I would, you know, that would have been awful if he had done anything sexually towards her, then that would have been even worse. But, I mean, yeah.
Well, good that he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Did he just want company?
Possibly.
Find some friends.
Well, I was just going to say, you don't kidnap somebody just to have company. You can't force somebody to spend time with you.
So, I mean, my thinking is, well, if your thoughts were sexual and you've kidnapped somebody and then, you know, you went through and done it and then decided, actually, no, I can't do that. That's, I mean, he did say it was a terrible thing, so that's good that he's, like, realised, you know, no, that's not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Why didn't he just let her go then? Like, why keep her around?
Yeah. Exactly.
Unless you just want company, but as I said, just get some friends.
Or maybe you just thought, well, I've gone too far now, like, I just have to keep this going, I don't know.
No idea. So, when Jayme was interviewed, she confirmed that he didn't sexually assault her, and the only time he was physical was the one time when he'd hit her on the back.
Yeah.
So he was asked why he chose Jayme, and he just said that he's always thought about fucking weird shit, and he hadn't been able to shake the idea of kidnapping a young girl and just keep her in shit. That was his words.
Right. Well, that sounds great.
So, Jake Patterson was charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 1 count of kidnapping, and 1 count of armed burglary, and his bail was set at $5 million. He pleaded guilty because he said he didn't want Jayme and her family to have to go through a trial. He didn't want Jayme to have to, like, go through all that. And I'm like...
Jayme and her family, well, she hadn't been fine. You fucking eliminated 2 of her family.
Oh, yeah. But I just thought... But yet she's still having to go through it anyway because she's having to tell the police everything that happened.
Oh, yeah, exactly. She still has to go over her ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
So, alright, she might have to repeat it in court, but she's still having to relive it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just like that annoys me when people do that. Oh, I pleaded guilty because I didn't want them to go through that. Well, you shouldn't have put them in through the ordeal in the first place.
Exactly, it's your fault that they're here in the first place.
So what do you want? You want credit for being nice?
Well, exactly.
And not making them go through a trial.
Should have been like a nice, decent person in the first place and not committed the crime that you've committed.
Yeah, exactly. So the jury, they agreed to dismiss the armed burglary count, and he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences, without the possibility of parole for the murders, and an additional 40 years for the kidnapping.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
So that's like, if you're talking about what, 25 years for life?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 50. That's 90 years.
Well, he'll never get out then.
Yeah, good.
Good on. Yeah, doesn't deserve to.
I mean, 40 years for the kidnapping, that's impressive. I mean, he obviously put that girl through hell. So, great.
Yeah, no, deserved it. That's the least they deserved.
So Jayme went to live with her Auntie Jennifer and Uncle Bob, and they were appointed as her legal guardians, and she got her dog Molly back. Aww. So I don't actually know where Molly was or what happened when he was killing the parents and where the police were and everything like that. So I don't actually know. Yeah,
because you would have thought the dog might have been in the bathroom with them if they'd...
Yeah, as I said, I don't know what happened to the dog. I don't know if they took the dog or, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, but she was fine and she got her dog back. And in May 2019, Jayme was presented with the Hometown Hero Award in Madison, Wisconsin for her bravery. In January 2021, her aunt released a statement marking the 2-year anniversary of her return home, and she said that Jayme was doing well and that she was enjoying dance and school.
Aww.
I know, it's just, it's so good that that she escaped, but it's so sad that she's been through that and then having to...
Lost her parents.
Yeah.
And witnessed her mum obviously getting killed. And obviously I know she didn't see her dad, but
She heard it though.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she said that. She was like, I knew he was dead.
Yeah, and potentially she would have had to walk past him on the way out. Or well, be carried past him.
Maybe. Well, I mean, that was at the front door. I mean, it could have been it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a horrendous ordeal for that poor girl. I mean, great that she's...
Again, unimaginable, you know, it's just...
Imagine having to go through that.
I know. The thing is, it's, you know, she's had her parents ripped away from her, and, you know, I'm sure through those 80 odd days that she was captive, she probably maybe had, you know, moments where she thought, am I going to ever go get out of this, you know?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, like, you know, she knew what he was capable of. She knew that he was a killer, so she would have, that whole time that she was there, she would have never have known if she was going to get out of that alive. And he said later, that he would never have hurt her, he was never going to kill her. She didn't know that.
No, she didn't know that, exactly.
Yeah, so imagine...
but good on her for at least, you know, getting that strength and confidence to just get out of there. And thankfully, you know...
She deserved a hero award, but
absolutely.
I hope the rest of her life is just uncomplicated and no tragedy. But yeah, I hope she's as happy as she can be.
Yeah, exactly, because she still deserves to have a life. I mean, I'm sure obviously, ideally, of course you want your parents there, but, you know, she can't change that, so she can just try and live her life the best she can, and hopefully she does find some happiness along the way.
Yeah. So, thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
If you would like to follow us on Instagram, Twitter or Threads, we are crime_divers_pod. We are on Facebook, TikTok and YouTube, and it's Crime Divers Podcast. Our email is crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. Our website is crimedivers.co.uk. If you would like to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/crimedivers. And if you would like to buy us a coffee, it's buymeacoffee.com/crimedivers.
And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, review.